Hello, everybody, and welcome to GamerVision. We are just now past 1 month. Yeah, 1 month. I think it's been 1 month of 2022 so far, and
Yes.
we've already seen some insane news. People dying left and right. Game companies getting purchased left and right. Spider-Man: No Way Home is
A good
still
movie.
in records.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm Jeff from Just One More Level, and of course we have Tony from Procedurally Generated.
Howdy, howdy, everybody.
How are you doing, Tony?
I am doing fantastic. It is one of these days, Jeff, we are going to be able to record a show that we plan on actually recording.
Yeah. Yeah, like NFTs? Nah. Microsoft purchases Activision Blizzard for $70 billion. Gonna talk about VR? Nah. Sony decides to purchase Bungie for some reason.
Yeah.
Gonna talk, still grasping at the straws on that one as far as where the thought process was with that. I've got theories, but
Well, let's just get into it. Like Sony, what
yeah,
was it? Monday,
yeah,
like the beginning of the week.
yeah. To, yes, yesterday as of this recording,
Uh, Sony
I think.
announced
Yeah,
that, or I guess Bungie technically, or was it Sony? I don't remember. Whichever one. I think I saw the Bungie announcement
yeah,
before anything from Sony that Sony now owns Bungie, and like not
yeah. Like,
we're just gonna make games for the PlayStation kind of thing. Like they own Bungie.
yeah.
Um,
Which you know, um, with the Activision Blizzard purchase from Microsoft, Microsoft now owns Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, which were former mascots of PlayStation. And then Sony was like, "Well, hey, you can do that. We're gonna buy the studio that Xbox was largely known for with Halo."
yeah. Which
Um,
is just,
now,
it's
obviously,
so weird that they just sort of
yeah,
flip flopped. And we saw today, actually, before we get into the Bungie news, that the SEC is going to be investigating the Microsoft acquisition or of
yeah,
Activision. We knew that was going to happen. That happens
yeah,
with every big merger like that. I fully expect that will go through. There will be
yeah.
no problems with that. But
Whenever $70 billion changes hands,
yeah, they're going to take a look at it.
they're like, "Hey, wait a minute. Uh, is
Yeah.
there something going on here?"
So, but yeah, I think
Um,
what was the purchase price of Bungie? Was it
yeah,
$3.6 billion,
yeah. I
something like
think it
that?
was 3.6 billion, which I've seen people throw the Insomniac acquisition that Sony made
Hmm.
back in 2018, I believe, where they got them for like 229
Yeah, yeah.
million, not billion, million, $229 million.
And
And
that's for a studio that has multiple, big name franchises
yeah,
that they're working on. Bungie has one.
yeah,
They're technically
and
working on another one. We don't know anything about that one. They have Destiny, and that's
yeah.
it.
And you might be thinking that I mean it's Destiny. I mean it's a big name, but like I know they're doing like TV and movie adaptations, and they're wanting to expand the story of Destiny, and like that's awesome. But $3.6 billion
Yeah,
to me seems like a lot
Destiny's not a
for
$4 billion franchise.
yeah.
Like
So
they don't even pull $1 billion in revenues a year for Destiny
yeah,
that I'm aware of.
and and I know they've got a big expansion coming out
They do the end of this
in
month.
February. Uh, but still, like I like did I saw something right before we started to film that I guess like Bungie and Microsoft were in talks of potentially like Microsoft repurchasing Bungie, and just the deal fell through.
Yeah.
So like kind of wondering just like did the deal fall through because Sony offered more, or did the deal fall through because Microsoft didn't see much of a reason to reacquire Bungie,
Yeah.
or there's a lot of speculation.
The
Um,
so some of the details of the deal. It was $3.6 billion. Bungie will remain
yeah,
independent. They're not coming under the umbrella of Sony Interactive Entertainment. They are going to remain a
yeah,
separate entity. under
focus on
under
multi-platform.
Sony, and they are going. Destiny will stay multi-platform. They're not going to drop the crossplay. All the
Yeah,
expansions coming will continue to come to every platform. So Xbox, PC, PlayStation, Stadia, whatever it's
yeah,
on, it will continue to come to those platforms. It's just that Sony now gets, you know, all that
that
money.
many.
So
Yeah, um, and like from my thought process or my perspective of this, Sony. I was talking with a friend a couple days ago that Sony kind of has a type when it comes to developing their first party stuff. The single player narrative, kind of the largely one and done. I mean, yeah, you can replay it to see just how much more stuff you can do, but largely a one and done type of game.
yeah,
They've dabbled in multiplayer stuff. They've dabbled in things that are like a games as a service or a live service game, but they largely suck at those. Um,
yeah, yeah.
they've done first person shooters and they've had moderate success. I remember,
I think
Killzone.
moderate at best success with
Yeah,
their first person
yeah,
shooters.
like they had Killzone, which was, for all intents and purposes, it was labeled the Halo killer
Mm-hmm.
back during the PS2 and Xbox. It didn't kill Halo.
Yeah.
It didn't come close to killing Halo, but it
They've
was labeled the Halo killer.
they've also had
So obviously,
Resistance.
yeah. So like they've had moderate at best first person shooters. Um, Bungie would allow them that talent and that experience to have a seasoned, first person shooter studio, because I mean Bungie is still one of the best when it comes to that genre.
Yeah,
Like Destiny has not lived on for as long as it has by being a bad game.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so like they've got the talent, and like this would be something that Sony could turn to and be like, hey, we want to eventually do something that that is a first person shooter that we can put our name on and finally find some success or long term success in this genre.
Yeah.
Um, that's really the only thing that I can see, because like in the interview with Jim Ryan and Pete Parsons,
I don't
hopefully
remember.
that's his name. I don't know, the Bungie CEO. Um, it's Pete something. Um, but like they talked about the fact that Bungie was going to remain independent. They're going to be doing their own thing. Yes, they're going to have PlayStation Game Studios on, or PlayStation Studios on the packaging or whatever.
Yeah.
But they're largely going to be treated as their own entity. They're just under PlayStation. Um, so it's a
Yeah.
weird ordeal. Um,
I've been trying to wrap my head around just what this brings for, like, what is the benefit to either company. I realize Bungie
yeah,
gets a little bit of stability. They get an influx of cash should they need it. um,
yeah,
what does
and
PlayStation get out of this though? I can't see it. I don't know. This is not like the Activision
yeah,
deal or the Bethesda deal for Microsoft where they get some huge, you know, money making studios. Destiny makes a lot of money, but it doesn't make a ton of money.
yeah,
Um,
like
the other thing, this isn't an exclusivity deal. I'm sure if Bungie ever does
yeah,
anything
like
in the future, that will probably be exclusive. But Destiny's not. So
yeah,
it doesn't force Microsoft. It doesn't force their
and
hand in anything. It doesn't give Sony any leverage over Microsoft for anything. Because if it came down
yeah,
to it, and Sony said, "Hey, Microsoft, you have to do this or we're going to take Destiny off the Xbox." Microsoft is going to look at them and say, okay, if they have to
yeah,
choose between Destiny or Call of Duty, they're going to take Call of Duty every time.
yeah, and they still have Halo.
Exactly.
Like they still have Halo, and they've got Call of Duty. So like, and that's one thing that was brought up in the interview, is like, even as far as they're willing to confirm or admit, Bungie is going to be multi-platform focused.
Yeah.
So they're like you said, like the exclusivity stuff, it's not there. So this acquisition of Bungie, just, I don't know, it feels odd, it feels weird. It's I feel like, maybe Sony threw them, $3.6 billion because they knew Microsoft was in talks to
Mhm.
possibly reacquire Bungie, and they were like, well, no, we will overvalue this purchase to make sure Microsoft doesn't pick up yet another,
Yeah.
talented studio. But even on the front of like trying to establish a Sony first person shooter, nothing's going to be exclusive. It's
Yeah.
still going to be on other platforms. So like I don't know. It just it's very it is it's just
I mean,
it's
this
I don't know.
does allow Sony to at least bolster PlayStation Plus somewhat,
Yeah,
PlayStation Now somewhat, because I fully expect that Destiny will be on PlayStation. Now will be on PlayStation Plus, like it was
yeah,
recently with Game Pass. All of that content, now that Sony owns Destiny, that's going to be free for PlayStation Plus subscribers or
yeah.
PlayStation Now subscribers at some
And
point soon.
whatever happens with Spartacus or whatever, Sony's next service is going to be, uh, and I mean, it could. There's also kind of in the same interview, while talking with the Bungie CEO, like Jim Ryan also like cryptically, he didn't come out and say really anything, but he said, a lot has happened with PlayStation over 25 years, and we've made a lot of great games and a lot of great characters, and they're like some like wanting to not he shied away from saying like support or bring those franchises forward, but like he was talking about the 25 years of PlayStation and just what they've done in 25 years, and just it's like, okay, what are you like alluding to? Because like, yes, you've made a lot of stuff over 25
Yeah.
years, but you haven't really supported a lot of that stuff
I
for
think
25
part
years,
of it is definitely going to be that we're going to see Sony embrace PC more. Um,
which
God
would
of
be cool.
War, Horizon, those titles that they've released on PC have been very successful on that platform
And, and they
already.
they and
And
they also just released that Uncharted bundle.
yeah, and so I fully think we're going to see them bring a lot of their first party titles to PC. I think we may start to see Sony start to embrace cloud a little more.
Yeah,
They're
and
seeing
and not just the Final Fantasy character.
no, they're seeing what exactly
Yeah,
they're seeing what Microsoft is doing and how successful Game Pass has been for them with over 25 million
yeah.
subscribers on Game Pass.
Jim Ryan did say that PlayStation is starting to transition to more of a multi-platform um, structure, which probably just means PlayStation and PC,
I think
not
so.
necessarily. Well, he did mention rival console, or he said rival consoles,
Yeah,
but you know he didn't name drop anybody, which kind of makes sense. But then the following day, MLB 2022 was not only announced for PlayStation platforms and Xbox platforms and PC, but it is also coming to the Switch,
yeah.
which I believe is the first time
This is yes.
that MLB is going to be on the Switch.
Yes, that is correct. Last year was the first year it showed up on Xbox, and that
Yeah,
comes from when Major League Baseball and Sony talked about renewing that license for Major League Baseball. One of the things that Major League Baseball said Sony had to do was put the games on other platforms besides
yeah,
the PlayStation. And so that's why you saw it come to the Xbox. It was on Game Pass day one. That would be the same
yeah,
thing this year. MLB The Show 22 will be on Game Pass on launch day,
yeah.
but it will be the first time it's also on the Switch, which is going to be
Which
really interesting. I'm
because
both excited and kind of worried about what that game on the Switch is going to be because they tend to push the graphics very heavily with sports
yes, they are
games.
very realistic
Um,
especially with the MLB games.
and we're not going to see PS5 and Xbox One level
Yeah,
or Xbox Series X level graphics on the Switch. It's just not going to
yeah,
happen. I don't think they'd go the
and
cloud route, so it's going to be interesting to see what that game looks like on the Switch.
and that's I know EA has kind of with some of their releases, and I think maybe even Take Two with some of the NBA titles. They've done like they've done like a physical release, but the physical release is just a code inside
Yeah.
the box. So like no matter what you do for the Switch, it's a downloadable.
Yeah, I'm almost certain that's what's going to happen with this as well.
Yeah,
Like
because
those
like what
games
we
are
were talking about.
huge.
Yeah, you've got all those teams, the stadiums, being able to customize the stadiums, being able to like customize your teams and stuff. Like there's just so much with the MLB games that it I'm not wanting to rag on the Switch, but it's
It is not as powerful as the other systems.
yeah,
That is
yeah,
no question about that.
yeah,
And I almost expect that this will also not be feature complete with the current versions of the game,
yeah,
because if you take last year's release on the Xbox for example, the Xbox One version of the game did not have things like the Stadium Builder, which the Xbox Series
yeah,
X version did. Um, so even
yeah.
among Xbox platforms, there was some disparity about features, and it was not feature complete from one platform to the other. So I would expect we'll see that with the Switch, and whatever the Switch version looks like will be very similar to whatever the Xbox One version of the game is.
But it is definitely this is such a strange time in gaming. Like 5 years ago, the structure of gaming was very it was set in stone. You had
Yeah.
your Microsoft, you had your Sony, you had your Nintendo, you had your Steam, and now you've got Epic Game Store and you got PlayStation on Xbox,
Yeah.
on Nintendo, you got Nintendo.
Nintendo's the only one that doesn't have anything
Yeah,
on other
yeah.
systems.
That's I was about to segue into it. I was like, wait, there's nothing.
Because this started back. I want to say probably Minecraft was the first thing that really sort of
Yeah,
you started
yeah,
to see this shift, because
yeah.
when Microsoft bought Mojang, they were not going
Like
to pull Minecraft from other platforms. Uh,
because it's just too
because
big of
it's
a
too
franchise.
big.
Just
Like they make
like
too much money on the PlayStation and the Switch to take that game off of those systems. And so you
yeah,
started to see Microsoft games on the Switch. You saw Microsoft's name on the PlayStation. And
yeah,
last year with Major League Baseball, we started to see a Sony logo
yeah,
on Microsoft
yeah,
systems. And now we're going to see a Sony logo on the Switch. And um,
yeah. Like and like I remember with like the PS5 and the Series X launching, like people using a DualSense controller
mhm.
on xCloud through their
through
PC.
I've
Like
seen weird combinations of people using like a
like
PlayStation 5 controller playing xCloud on an iPad, or or um,
yeah,
I play all of my PC games. I play them through xCloud with a Luna controller. So Am-
just
Amazon and Google, you got those in there. You can play PlayStation games on an iPad with a
yeah.
Google Stadia controller.
Kind of forgot about the Minecraft or the Mojang purchase that Microsoft did, but I think we definitely started to see this
Mhm.
intensity increase after Microsoft acquired Bethesda
Yeah, that
or
was a
ZeniMax.
huge deal. Like that
Uh,
that deal, I guess it was just last year, 2020,
yeah,
I
like
guess. I think it was
yeah, so
2020.
like
Technically, it was
late
two.
2020.
Yeah, that showed the industry that big publishers aren't, safe from. No, I guess not
Yeah,
really. Aren't safe from acquisition, but
that they weren't too big to purchase.
those deals are not off the table anymore.
Yeah. So like and of course, Sony and like what you said earlier in the show, just the fact that Jeff Keighley has said that more acquisitions are coming, other big deals are coming,
Yeah.
and just really wondering what's next. Like Square Enix going to Sony? Is Nintendo going to get into the game if Sony
See,
starts to pick up Japanese
that
studios or
I don't see that happening. Like they've let their own second party studios die with like Alpha Dream, the
Mm,
developers behind the Mario and Luigi franchise, which has been a really
yeah,
big seller for them. And you think that's the kind of development studio that would be safe. And if that studio started to go out of business, Nintendo would step in and say, okay, we're gonna buy you and bring
yeah,
you under the Nintendo banner. But that didn't happen. So
yeah. And I mean,
I can't see Nintendo doing anything.
Nintendo could be looking at it as like they we don't need to do that. We have our own studios already. We already have a bunch of games that we produce ourselves. Sony's kind of at that point as well, where like, well, I mean, they had 15 something studios, and some of the studios had like three or four teams inside of them,
Yeah.
like Naughty Dog, that they were producing a lot of games and stuff, but now they're buying more studios to produce more games. And of course, Microsoft going on the buying spree to kind of get themselves back into the race.
Yeah.
But
Like
I wonder if Sony starts eyeing like Capcom, Konami, Namco Bandai,
there
like,
there are definitely some deals that I see that make sense. And we've talked
and if it,
I think we've talked about it before.
yeah, and like I just kind of wonder what kind of deals or discussions that could start opening the door to Nintendo being like, okay, well, we don't want to be completely left out on
Yeah.
this, or like also with the previous GamerVision where we talked about the Activision acquisition, is like, will Apple and Amazon and these other like not necessarily gaming companies per se, or like the traditional gaming companies, will they start looking at this and be like, okay, well, we need to start throwing around $100 billion to start picking up some
Yeah,
studios, or
Amazon seems like the most likely to make a big purchase like that because they have the
yeah,
kind of capital that could do that. I see
and they got
I see three possible purchases from Square, not Square. I'm giving away my thoughts. Sony.
you're
Um,
giving answers away.
there are three that I see that make some sense. I don't see them possibly necessarily happening, specifically because Sony closed down their Japan studios and they focus more
Yeah,
on the West. But Square Enix makes a ton of sense for Sony because they have a number of franchises that have been associated with the PlayStation brand over the years, with Final Fantasy,
yeah,
which has also been been associated with Nintendo. But since Final Fantasy VII, they've very much been Sony first. Um, Dragon Quest would be a huge one if they could find a way to lock that franchise up under the PlayStation banner. Um,
and could potentially be something where Nintendo steps in and is like, no, no, no,
yeah,
no. Like Dragon Quest does very well on Nintendo platforms.
yeah. The other one would be Capcom and wanting Sony wanting to lock up the Monster Hunter
Yeah,
franchise.
which
Because Monster Hunter and Dragon Quest, the two biggest franchises in Japan. So if Sony could lock
yes,
those up, those would be huge acquisitions. But just like with Dragon Quest, I see Nintendo maybe trying to figure out a way to keep that from
yeah,
happening because Monster Hunter has been huge for Nintendo with the 3DS and the Switch.
yeah. The Monster Hunter stories, Monster Hunter Generations, Rise.
Yeah,
Like I feel like if there was ever something that could happen that would get Nintendo to finally start making a move, would be if Sony was like, well, we're gonna get Monster Hunter exclusive, we're gonna
yeah.
get Dragon Quest exclusive, because Sony has, for for the most part, I don't like it. I hate the fact that they shuttered so much of their Japanese
Yeah.
development, because
Yeah, it means we're not getting Knack 3 is what it means and
yeah,
that
yeah,
actually
Knack 3,
that actually does make me sad because I loved the first two Knack games. I honestly genuinely do like the Knack games. I played through the first one about 7 times with my son.
there's just something so joyous and just creative about the games that come from Japan.
Yeah.
Like they're not these hyper realistic action shooter games. You know, they're colorful, they're vibrant, they're like Ape Escape. Ape Escape is just a crazy running around catching monkeys.
Gravity
Like,
Rush.
yeah, like I mean, they made Africa, they made like just these really like Linger in Shadows on the
Hmm.
PS3. Just a very weird, very almost nightmarish game of just going around and seeing weird faces everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
but anyway, this is. I don't know what the next episode is going to be. I kind of feel like we just have to just like name something and then something big happens.
See,
But
all this is doing is just giving us a backlog of episodes we can go to if we ever have a week
yeah,
where there's nothing going on.
it's like, what do we talk about? Let's see. There's no companies being acquired, so maybe now we can talk about VR, and then we'll see like Take Two and EA just merge.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh gosh.
that would be,
That would be an
huh,
interesting combination.
that would be a whole other episode. But in the comments, let us know what you think. There's content going up all over the place from Just One More Level and procedurally generated with podcasts and live streams over on Twitch. And
Yep.
all kinds of crazy things. Who knows what's going to happen by the next episode of GamerVision, but just hold on to your seats and we will do our best to. I mean, we're under 30 minutes on this one. Maybe we'll finally have a topic that reaches 15. Who knows? But we'll see you with the next episode of GamerVision.